I'll call the November 14th council meeting to order at this time. First, we're going to start with an invocation, and I understand we have Pastor Jason Minershagen from First Baptist Church of Wentzville here. Thank you for being here, sir. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand. Remove your hats, please, gentlemen.
Father God, we come to you today grateful that you not only allow us to enter into your presence, but that you welcome us as we lay our prayers at your feet. Thank you, Lord, for the many blessings that we each have received individually, and for the corporate blessings that you've showered upon our nation over the last 2 centuries. Thank you for your hand of provision and blessing upon our nation, our state, our county, and our community. Lord, in the wake of Veterans Day last Friday, we acknowledge that all that we have and all that we enjoy in this nation are by the blood of the cross and the sacrifice of the American veteran. As we gather here tonight, Lord, to conduct the business of leading our county and our communities, may our ears be tuned to the needs of those that are around us, and our eyes see the world around us as you do. May our hearts be softened toward the needs of the oppressed, and our decisions be guided by your wisdom. May our tongues speak only what you would say, and may our hands and feet proclaim your glory through our actions and our deeds. Your kingdom come, Lord, your will be done. We pray these things by the blood of the cross and in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Brazel will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Would you call the roll, please, Donna?
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here.
Thank you. Before the next item on the agenda, I understand we have a presentation, and if someone would make a motion to move that to this part of the agenda, we could proceed with that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
Okay, I think the chief is here.
He is, and with him are Steve Hard and Shauna Bush Lukenhouse and her husband Shane, who are the children of Sergeant John Bush.
John Bush, yeah.
505, longtime stalwart of both the sheriff's office and the police department. And they have a
100%,
presentation.
yes, thank you.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
My sister Shawn and I are here to represent and continue our legacy of our father, John Bush, who served 50 years for the St. Charles County Sheriff's Department. As everyone is aware, as last year, this is our second year you're allowing us to visit your meeting. Thank you for that. And our dad's ultimate goal in his career was to make sure all policemen got home safely. And our job as his kids is to continue that legacy. So we're here tonight to donate a check for $6,000 to the St. Charles County Police Department, to Chief and Captain Kathy. They were so instrumental in helping us with our tournament this year by showing up and being there for us. And Chief said some kind words on behalf of us in our tournament, so we thank you for that. So now? Yeah, we need. Oh. So, Sean, you want to say anything? This is our second year, so we have now donated $12,000 to the St. Charles County Police Department.
Oh.
These are smaller.
Thank you very much.
Chief, did you wish to say a few words?
First, I'd like to thank the Bush family for doing this for the police department. And I know it was Sergeant Bush's passion was training and, like you said, officers going home. And he did it for so many years. So in return, what we're going to do with the funds that they've supplied us with, we're always going to put it towards training or officer safety. So this year, we're in the process of equipping all of our officers with a new pistol with a red dot sight on it. That's a project that's been in the works for the last several months, and this will help fund several of the pistols and the red dot sights for that. So pretty soon, our officers will start transitioning in these weapons. It's going to be a great resource for them for officer safety reasons. So we really appreciate the Bush family and this partnership, and it is a great event. So next summer, look for it. But it's a great tournament.
July 10th,
Yeah, so,
Whitmore Country Club.
Your dad would be so proud of you. I'm sure he's looking down on us now. So thanks for being here and for all that you do.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a conditional use permit bill for introduction and public comment, and that is bill number 5111-CUP 22-11. Would you read the title?
Bill number 5111, requested by Robert Myers, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-11 for an outdoor storage lot for automobiles, boats, trucks, and recreational vehicles to Osage Land Holdings LLC property owner.
Okay, and we have Robert Meyer here to make a presentation for us. Good evening, sir.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
Briefly, this is a conditional use permit, again, for outdoor storage yard for automobiles, boats, trucks, and RVs. It's a little less than 6 acres on the southwest quadrant of Highway D and Double D in southwest St. Charles County. One of the aspects of this property is it's owned commercial, but it doesn't have sanitary sewer service. So there's only a limited range of commercial uses that this site will support. Also, it can't be used for residential, so there's only certain uses that it can be used for. The conditional use permit, the storage yard would be up for up to 324 automobiles, boats, trucks, and recreational vehicles. The concept plan that was submitted and is attached to the draft the bill, it shows that adjoining residential, it would have what's called a Type 3 buffer that would include a 6-foot site-proof fence plus coniferous trees. Also, evergreen trees would be along the frontage along Highway D as well. Because there's a long, narrow strip of property to the east that fronts on Highway DD, this property does not have access to Highway DD, and it only has one way in and one way out. Also, the property would be secured with fencing as well. The conditional use criteria, as always are, would establishing, maintaining, or operating the conditional use be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, or the general welfare? Would the conditional use injure the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity? Would the conditional use injure the aesthetic and/or scenic values of the vicinity? Would the conditional use substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood? Would the conditional use impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in those zoning districts? The Planning and Zoning Commission, at their public hearing, included public testimony from neighbors and people in the area, in addition to the applicant. At that time, a petition with 125 signatures opposing the conditional use permit was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission and accepted into the record. Following the closing of the public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission, the commission voted 0 in favor and 7 against. Consequently, because of that vote, passage would require a minimum of 5 votes in the affirmative by the county council. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommends denial. The Planning and Zoning Division recommends approval with the application to specific conditions as suggested in the bill that's before you tonight. And we do have the applicant here with us for a presentation.
Okay. Would you like to call the applicants up, please?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
I know Mr. Hollander wasn't at that meeting, but Planning and Zoning denied it. What was the reason that they gave for denial?
They didn't go into details or express specifically why. One of the statements was that having to do with highest and best use of the property, and I think that may have been a factor. Also, I believe that the neighbors' concerns and preferences was taken into consideration as well.
Any other question?
Mr. Cronin?
Robert, since planning and zoning's denied this, has there been substantial change to the plans that might alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbors?
I have not seen changes to the concept plan, where the concept plan as presented to Planning and Zoning Commission is forward as part of your packet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? In watching the video, I did note that several of the people who spoke against it made the point that there was a similar facility somewhere in that area.
Right.
And I think a lot of the people also talked about the use of the property, but this has been zoned commercial.
Yeah, it's been zoned commercial for
And
some
it's not
time. There is-
suitable for residential because there are no facilities there? I'm sorry
It's,
to interrupt you.
Residential is not a permitted use in the commercial zoning district. And the reference was made at the meeting to, there's an existing storage yard about 1,000 feet to the east that's already constructed and operating, and they stated that they wanted to operate it very similar to that.
Okay. Any other questions for Robert? Okay, you want to call up the applicant then, please? Good evening.
Good evening,
You'll be sworn
ma'am.
in by Donna, and then I'm going to ask you each to state your name and your address.
Do you both solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
We do. I do.
Okay, state your name, sir.
My name, for the record, is Mike Faulkner. I'm Vice President with Sterling Engineering, and this is Mr. David Kolb, who's petitioner. And we're here tonight seeking your favorable consideration of our proposal.
What's your address, Mr. Faulkner?
5055 New Baumgardner, St. Louis, 63129.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're getting some handouts here.
Thank you.
See if we can get them to come up.
Thank you.
Not getting anything.
If you're ready then, Mr. Faulkner.
Thank you very much this evening, Madam Chair. The site is on the west side of Highway D and, or DD and D. As you can see, the site is, as Robert had mentioned, does not have any frontage out onto DD, but does have its frontage out on the Highway D. And you can see that there's a natural buffer. If I can get this to work. There's a natural buffer that runs along the southern boundary line here that we're going to maintain as much as possible along there that we can. Here again, we're going to be, and you'll see on the site plan when I pull that up. Here's the site plan. I apologize, it's kind of small, so it's kind of hard to see. But the site basically has a ridge line that runs right through the middle of it. And so what we basically have is a area here that's tributary, so the stormwater would run in this direction, this stormwater would run in this direction, and as you can see, I lost it. There it is. So what we have,
Just trying to get it out of the way.
I don't know, somebody's. I apologize. So we have two stormwater basins that would be located, one in this location here, which is where this water would flow, and then another stormwater basin that would be in this location that would pick up all the water that would come off the rest of the site. That was one of the main concerns of the residents, is how were we going to maintain stormwater and where that stormwater was going to go. So what we've done with this development is we've considered and designed these basins to meet the new St. Charles County Code for stormwater management, and with water quality and detention and volume reduction. But also what we've done is we've sized these basins as if this whole lot, which would be the storage lot, was completely paved, which would be 100% impervious. So that is not the case, because it's going to be gravel, and so it's going to actually be pervious. So it will actually, the water will actually go into the ground there. But we've designed this as if it was going to be 100% impervious, so we've actually over-designed. But we want to make sure that, the residents in the area, that we were not going to have any stormwater issues, because there is some lakes. There's a lake, I believe, over on this gentleman's property, and then there's another pond that's down here that's off-site. So we were very concerned about those facilities, so we wanted to make sure that we had adequate stormwater protection for those. Another thing that was brought up at the Planning Commission is there was question as far as how far the gate, because this development will be completely enclosed with a fence, and it'll be a gate which will have each of the individuals that will be given a key, I believe a keypad, I believe. And then, so they will be able to go up and gain access. So it'll be a 24/7 controlled access gate. And that gate will actually you can kind of see it here, it's kind of hard to see, but it is actually recessed. So from the edge of pavement to the gate is about 110 feet. So there's plenty enough room for someone to pull off while they've got a boat, or if they've got an RV, so there'd be enough room so they would not be out into the drive lane. The other thing the fence line will be about 48 to 50 foot off of the edge of pavement. So it's going to be set back quite a ways. Plus, with this development, what we did was we came in here, and this buffer along here, we agreed with staff, but we have actually beefed up that above and beyond what staff had originally recommended, which was the type 3. And what we've got is especially along here and along this area right here, we've actually taken, instead of having any type of deciduous trees, we're going to have all pines. They're all going to be both white pines, different types of pines, to create a year-round buffer instead of something that you'd be able to look through. So, and that's pretty much mimicking what's done on the one to the east development. The other storage facility that's just to the east of us. Let's see if I can bring up. This right here is a photo of that facility. So what you're looking at here is the entryway going into that facility that's on D, just to the east of DD. So what we'll be looking pretty much like this, because we're going to have our pine trees will be staggered so as to make sure that we can create the biggest screen that we can for the residents. And then, so really the only thing you're going to see is really the access going into the facility. So that's what our streetscape will look like. And again, we're beefing that up. See if I can get it to come back up again. Doesn't seem to like me. There we go.
There you go.
Here's another look, looking down the street, which is will be a representative of what you'll see coming down D towards our facility also. So a great screen is what we're looking to do, is try and screen both our neighbors and the residents that are coming down. And with that, I'll turn it over to David.
All right.
So, this is my first time doing anything like this before and having to come in front of the council. I'm trying to set this up. It's been in my family for a very long time, and my grandpa actually developed the entire area, honestly, most of St. Charles County. This is a goal for me and my brothers to establish this and have it pay for itself over time from, my grandma and my family and those sort of things, so it could, eventually be free and clear. And then that way, when sanitary service is actually then, brought to that area, we can then develop and hopefully into a shopping center or something that is better suited and much needed in that area at that time. But given the current environment and the traffic count, as well as no sanitary, there's really, really a limited amount of what we can do with it. And we're just trying to find something that can help pay for it until that moment happens. So, I get that a lot of the community doesn't believe that this is, the best case for it. But I would like to push back just a little bit in the sense of what's already in the permissive uses. I'd like to read a couple of those, if that's okay, and most of which aren't even eligible to do because there's no sanitary. And, in a permissive use where it wouldn't even be up here, seeking a conditional would be an automobile car wash, an automobile service station, an automobile repair auto body shop, a blacksmithing and welding service, a broadcast facility with a tower, frozen food lockers and cold storage facility, general contracting services, electrical, heating, and HVAC storage, a halfway house, a medical marijuana cultivation facility, medical marijuana dispensary facility, medical marijuana testing facility, a motel or a hotel, a nightclub, public parking garage facility, a tattooing and body piercing establishment, taxidermy, telecommunication towers, accessory use customarily incidental of the above, including crematory and mortuary, and a portable storage and accessory structures. So I kind of lean into the questions that were promoted in the last one of, what's best use. I would strongly think that this is a better use because it's very low traffic, it's very non-invasive to the neighbors. I mean, it's the number one thing that you could put in that would cause little to no harm to the surrounding area until we can bring something that could really serve the community around there. But without sanitary at this time, I don't really find a whole other options, even in those that I listed, which I believe would be much worse types of businesses, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. The other thing I was just going to state is, there was some questions as to, who would serve this storage facility. St. Charles County, especially in that area, is very prominently 5-acre and 3-acre lots. In the packets I submitted to you is just one of the excerpts of the neighboring Markham establishment that is built by Lombardo Homes within the last 12 months. And it's a 5-acre development that prevents RVs, boats, cars, anything that can be parked in the line of sight, as well as it restricts outsert buildings done by the owners of those communities to have additional parking garages. So when a lot of times when people are asking, who's going to utilize it, it's all the housing developments that are being put out there, not just 3-acre or half-acre or quarter-acre high-density stuff that might be happening in other neighboring communities. This is all new types of building that's happening just today, because everybody wants it to be cleaned up and looking nice. And I believe that our plan with all of the barriers and the trees and the privacy fences, checks all those boxes, and I believe it's a win-win.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Kolb or Mr. Faulkner?
The only question I would have is, in looking at the overlays that are in our packet, the aerials, I can see the other lot that's there. It looks pretty full. Have you talked to the Kevens as to whether or not their area is actually full?
Yeah. Yes, we have. We've talked to them, and we've as well driven by all the neighboring ones that's up off of Z, as well as the one on just adjacent from here, and they are all either at capacity or almost at capacity, to the point where Kevens are actually even expanding their one over on Z to make it a little bit bigger because it's been filled up very rapidly.
Okay.
I have a question for Mr.
Yeah,
Faulkner.
go ahead.
On your drawing here, you said that you're keeping the foliage along Lauderdale subdivision intact, but it looks to me that if your detention basin's accurate to your design, then you're gonna cut into those tree lines all the way to the property line because you gotta have some kind of slope. So I don't understand how you could you're not keeping the tree base there. And how tall is that? How tall is that foliage line, do you know?
I don't know the height of the material that is back there, but here again, this is just a concept representation. Once we get into, if approved, once we get into the actual design, this is just to demonstrate that we have a lot more area than what will be required by staff, but that area, it will actually be moved away so we can maintain at least 20-foot area of existing tree line along through there.
Lauderdale subdivision, that was just built recently, and they've got a lot of really nice homes in there. And this lot drops 10 feet from the top to the other end, so whatever size, whatever your berm or whatever you may plan to put there, you're still gonna be able to see that because of the slopes going up towards Highway D.
Correct.
So it's a concern.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. If you want to have a seat, we're going to take the public comment portion of that, and we may call you back up to answer any questions that come up, so thank you. Okay, so if you filled out a card for this, you'll be called to come up, you'll be sworn in, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. So if you want to call up the first person.
Cameron Corsi.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good evening.
Good evening, council. I am one of those homeowners in the subdivision to the southwest of this particular proposed area that was just talked about. 21 Watusi Way is our address. It's 6 different 3-acre lots, 3 of which are currently occupied by over $1 million homes. Ours is one of them. If you had looked at that picture on there, ours would have been within a line of sight of the back of this, what is being proposed. I didn't see anything on there, as was mentioned, about anything that would block the view from this beautiful subdivision where we're actually planning on spending the rest of our lives. And we purchased the lot next to us for one of our sons, so we want to have a legacy in this area without bright lights shining on us, without the property values being taken down, as we think could happen as a result of this. So that's the large concern of the property owners. I am the HOA president, and we have all discussed this and have the same concerns that I've just mentioned here, in addition to some of the other things that were mentioned in the earlier meeting. Thank you. That's kind of to summarize what I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question. What would you think would be visually pleasing to you that would go in that property?
So my understanding was this could be used for homes as well, right?
No.
No.
Okay, so
If they change the zoning, it could be.
So if we change the zoning, it could be, but, the only things were read on there were things that were worse than this. I would like to see if there's other things on the list that would be better than this. So I don't have an answer to that question right off the top of my head. I do kind of take, when they said there was no sanitary, by that I think he meant no public sewer, but everybody is on septic. So there is sanitary. Everybody is very sanitary around there. And, you know, it just made it sound like, and the other thing that I want to mention here is if you look at the Keevan property and you compare it, Mr. Elam, you mentioned that. There are no $1 million homes on any side of that. So that's something else to take into consideration.
Do you think $1 million home is more valuable than, you know, than a home that's like $150,000?
Absolutely not, Mr. White. No, and I don't believe anybody is any better, but I believe the property value will be taken down even more.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair? Good to see you, Cameron.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Robert. Hey, Robert, the list of permissive uses, okay, includes stuff like nightclubs and the like, okay? What are those listed permissive uses? How many of those could be accomplished with a septic system on the property? For instance, one is a taxidermy or a tattoo parlor or a marijuana facility. Would any of those be allowed on a 5-acre site with a septic system?
Sometimes you'll see commercial operations with on-site sewage treatment systems. Occasionally, I've seen a gas station or a convenience store, but it doesn't happen very often. Usually, the public sewers lead development, and then public water follows development. That's kind of the way I put it. So it doesn't necessarily preclude any commercial development. It's just more difficult, I'd say.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, you know, that I've run into this in my district quite a bit. I always tell the neighbors to be very careful what you ask for, because in this situation, if this would get turned down, something like an automobile service station could be put in with a septic system, and that's not a desirable use either. So, you know, but I understand this gentleman's concerns right away if he's got a visual sight line of this thing, and we really don't know how much of that southern border they're going to take out for the detention with Mr. Brazel. So, you know, I think a little bit, this plan needs a little more work myself, okay?
Okay. Maybe we could hold other questions of staff until we finish the public comment, which is
Sure.
what we
Sorry.
normally do. So, okay, but Robert will stay with us to answer those questions. You're going to call the next speaker.
Dan Lauderdale.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Hi, I'm Dan Lauderdale. I own the property at 6 Lauderdale Lane. I own the property at 1231 Highway DD. I own the property at 1293 Highway DD. That's residential directly bordering this property. I also own a piece of commercial at 1299 Highway DD. The proposed plan is going to affect values at the community which I developed, Lauderdale Estates. We do still have more land to develop in the community. I'm sorry, not to develop, but to build on. We do have people from all around coming to us asking about the sale of the lots. You know, it's something that we have really held off on because we would like to preserve the rural field. Now I do have 3-acre lots, so rural field's pretty easy to accomplish there, but preservation is what we're looking for. We are concerned with security issues. 324, I think, stalls available for parking. I think that they had mentioned that they were really looking to draw in people from outside of our community. I believe the people in our area are interested in our community staying the way that it is. So it does concern me with his notion of bringing people in outside of the community. We did talk about, or he did talk about, the Lombardo development, which doesn't allow for RV parking, storage of boats, delinquent vehicles, and things of that matter. And that's correct. In these new developments, that's not allowed. But I would say that the communities that I know of in that area, Lauderdale Estates for one, I could speak for, doesn't have comments in our indentures which stop that from happening. Delinquent vehicles, yes, but not not RVs. You know, there are items, there are other businesses that could be used that weren't brought up in this discussion. Veterinarians, I'd love one of those. You know, Sorensen's is down the street, so I don't know that we need more kennels, but we could put kennels there. We could have a daycare. You know, we could use a septic system for that, I believe. If I'm not absolutely correct with that answer, I apologize, but you know, again, we're back to security. We're bringing people in. There's a lot of stalls. You know, am I in favor of this? No. My outreach and the amount of money that I spent to revitalize that corner is large for me. I mean, I don't have the money of some others. But what I did see was an opportunity to bring our community together and revitalize the corner of Highway D and Highway DD. There was a building there that had been there since before I was born, and I passed it every day coming out to visit my grandfather. The property owner came to me and asked me to purchase it because he wanted to keep it similar to what it was. It took some time, but he finally twisted my arm, and I agreed to it. And so my goal was to keep it the way that it was, and I spent a lot of money to make that happen. And now we're standing here trying to make sure that I don't have a parking lot next to it. You know, I don't want to say harsh words to explain how I feel about the property, but it's just not best for our community. And there are other options that we could put at that location. I can't put them there because I don't own it, but.
Okay.
Thanks for
Thank
listening
you.
to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Leaker.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bob Leaker, Robert Leaker. I'm a realtor, broker with my own real estate company, a member of the St. Charles County Association, you know, of realtors and that. I definitely believe this development, the CPU that you're doing in this location where it is, where he's proposing it, will bring down property values. I currently live in Lakeway subdivision, been there over 30 years. The piece of property that is directly west of their proposed development used to be in our development and it's been out. And I know that neighbor is vehemently against the development, the CPU that's being proposed, because he will see it regardless of trees. Property values will go down, I have no doubt about it. It is a residential area. Regardless, there are smaller, you know, $150,000 homes, there are $2 million homes out there all around, and they're continuing to develop it. There was an argument that we need this type of stuff out there. Many of the homes out there, in fact, the new ones in the cross development up on Highway D, you know, there's at least one home in it, they build their RV shed, if you want to call it, that looks like the house right next to it. Our subdivision, Lakeway, which is over 30 years old, has 6-car garages so they can put their stuff in it. You know, so that stuff is out there. Now, when you get further north from that intersection and that, you will see high density, more high density subdivisions that may need it. Kevens has a huge storage facility on Z and N that is wide open. There's all kind of storage there. That's 15 minutes away, okay? Kevens, where he's talking about on D right now, just east of Double D, there's open spots. I drive by there all the time. And like, again, I say 15 minutes away on Z and N, there is a massive, probably 10-plus acre Kevens storage. And then down the road from that, Kevens storage, you know, on Z is another 3 to 5 acre lot. My point being, there isn't really a whole lot of need out there. It's a residential area. When you drive through there, you're going to New Melly, okay? You're going to Defiance, the wine country. You're in Bush's Wildlife. So by putting this in there, you're going to start to deteriorate, you know, the overall look of that area and bring down property values. The main commercial section in that area is the northeast corner of D and Double D, okay? That's where the Double D Market is, that's where the firehouse is, that's where Keven is. So all that's up in that northeast corner. If you start pulling, coming west of Double D and going more commercial, although it's even allowed, but especially this type of thing, I think you're going to degrade property values. There's a lot of traffic along D, lots of traffic. I think this will increase it. One of my final points is I used to own one of these years ago. There's a lot of crime that can come in on these things. I owned one of these, okay? And unless you keep it pristine, which is very hard to do, you get a lot of trash buildup, stuff flying around, the place becomes dirty, okay? And you get a crime input. It's not a good fit for St. Charles County in this area. There's a lot of areas, like where Keven's has it right now, out on Z and N, in those areas, you know, to where it's much more commercial than we are. So I'm strongly against it. And that's about all. I'm strongly against it. Property values will go down. It's not the best fit. There could be other things there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Any questions? Yes.
Question, sir?
Bob?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. White has a question for you.
How much will the property values go down? What percentage?
I couldn't tell you that right now.
Then what, you'd have no statistics to prove that this will go down?
I know as a broker, when you start putting commercial property immediately adjoining residential, it's going to have a definite effect. Unless I go out and do a CMA, I couldn't tell you that. But I do know commercial property will bring down, you know, if it's adjoining directly to.
But you don't know how much?
No.
You don't know what percentage, a 0.5%, 2%, 3%?
I guess to the homeowner, you know, not to be contrary, but what difference would it make? If my home is worth $300,000 and because this comes in, it goes down, you know, to 290, what difference does it make? If the property value still goes down.
Well, do you think the property values will go up when something more suitable will come in?
I couldn't tell you that.
All right.
I mean, if you got a decent thing in there where, just like Lauderdale said, Mr. Lauderdale said,
Yeah.
you bring in a vet, we already have one, but you have another type of facility that blends in with the lifestyle out there.
Yeah.
You know, there's horses out there, there's cattle, there's dogs. It's a forestry type of area. You bring in that type of thing, and I would say it would increase value. People want to live out there for that.
So what you're saying is it might go down for the short term, but it'll go back up in the long term?
Could.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, sir.
Kelly Slack.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Slack. I am the property owner at 3816 Highway D, which is directly next to this proposed 324 vehicle parking lot. Directly next to. It's my property line that adjoins this. I am very opposed to this. I have a 3-year-old. I raise livestock. I moved to the country because I lived in the country and that's where I wanted to be. I don't want to live next to a parking lot. Not only do I feel that this parking lot would devalue my home and the area in which that I live, but there's going to be 324 more vehicles parked there, plus the 324 vehicles that have to tow them on our roads, on Highway D and Double D. And if you travel D and Double D, you will know that it is a winding, curvy, slightly crumbling road. And I don't feel that adding another 324 vehicles times 2, 648, because remember, they have to be towed by something, to our roads is going to benefit us. I already have issues with people who like to use my very large driveway to turn around, and I have a concrete driveway. It's already breaking down. I don't want more vehicles thinking that they can use my driveway to turn around. In fact, I had to call the St. Charles County Sheriff's Office non-emergency line one night and ask the very nice sheriff's officer to please stop using my driveway to turn around because he was setting off my dinger and waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I really appreciated he was out there doing his job. I just needed him to not keep waking me up. And I know that there will be people who will overshoot the entrance, who will be using my driveway to turn their RVs or their boats or their cars around. It already happens now. And I have a dog, and I have a cat, and I have small livestock, and I have a 3-year-old who plays outside. And I worry about those cars on my driveway. In addition to that, the light pollution from this 324 parking lot slot. And not only that, but we have a lot of migratory wildlife. I have owls, I have woodpeckers, I have great blue herons that use that pond, that 1-acre pond that's next to this. I have so much wonderful wildlife that I get to see and experience with my daughter and teach her about the natural world around us. And they want to take that all away and put in a parking lot right next to my house. And they think that having a 20 or 30-foot berm of pines, which will become infested with bagworms, by the way, because that's what happened to my house in Indiana, because bagworms do love those pines, which will again decrease the value of our homes and our neighborhoods, because now you've got an insect infestation in your pines, is a problem. If you take a short walk along my property line, you're going to see a lot of native Missouri trees, bushes, plants, wildlife. But instead, you want me to look at pines and a 6-foot fence and 324 spots for people to park their RVs. I want to make the point that Keevan Brothers already has a very large storage facility next to the fire station, very close to my house. And in addition to that, our neighbors are already building their own buildings to put their RVs in when they come out into our area. So those new divisions that are going in, they know they need a place to store their RVs if they're going to come out, and they are doing it on their own property, where I don't have to look at it, and my neighbors at Lakeway don't have to look at it, and my neighbor Dan on the other side, he doesn't have to look at it. So I'm opposed, very opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Chance Thies?
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good
Counsel.
evening.
My wife and I just bought 2 6-acre lots in Warren
I'm
County.
sorry, what is your name, sir?
Oh, Chase Thies.
Okay.
And we didn't particularly want to live in Warren County, but we wanted to find the land that suited us best. We currently live off Schlersburg Road, which is off Highway F. We prefer to stay in that area, but there was nothing available for us in our price range. We can't afford 6-car garages or $1 million homes, and also we wanted to make sure that the land around us suited our needs. We live in a community which has, 6, 10-acre lots, and it suits us for what we want. It's public information. I use a Landglide app. I can see what the land is around me. I can see what's zoned as, how much land they have, who has it. And, that was a factor that my wife and I considered when we purchased our land that we want to build our home on. A lot of what you've heard tonight is speculation about property values may go up, may go down, traffic may not increase, but one thing that we do know for a fact, because Mr. Kolb's already invested in St. Charles County. He has a development in Cottleville that is an asset to that community. It's a food truck park, and it's really nice. I mean, if you guys were to go there in the season, it's family-friendly, the workmanship is extremely high, and so we can go off what we think might happen, or we already know what he's already done in this community one time before, and he wants to do it again. He's a young man that I've actually never met him before. I just know of his family because I work in the same industry, and I know what his dad does. And he could have worked in his dad's office the rest of his life and had an easy job, and instead he wants to invest, not just once, but now twice in our community. Unless if expect this lot to stay vacant. Or, you know, other people have recently built on the corner, as they mentioned, they didn't put a vet in. They put the business that most suited them. And now when it comes to somebody else, they want to say, well, maybe that will suit you, but it would suit me a lot better if you did something different. But they didn't take that consideration in when they put their business in. So we can go off what may or may not happen, what people say they think they want, but we can go off what David's already done, and he wants to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stephanie Edelman.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Hi, my name's Stephanie. I live at 4085 Highway D. I live about 1 mile west from this intersection. I am a third-generation resident. My family has lived here for over 80 years. I have seen progress and expect it. But putting something that is so impersonal and an eyesore is not what this area needs. The buildings where Mr. Lauderdale office is, that used to be a restaurant, where a lady used to wave to the kids while they drove away on the bus, school bus. Then it used to be a upholstery store. Then it used to actually be a glass cutting place. And then that's beneficial to everybody, not just 300-plus people. And then the small businesses next to the crossroads, or right now the Double D Market, that can benefit everybody too. So no matter how many trees you put on it, in front of it, it's still gonna be, you're still gonna know it's there. We still know that the other one down the street is there. And it's never full. I pass it maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and it's not full. The one on Z and the 2 on Z, they're never full either. So they can go, these people that need it now can go to that one. And even with the cameras that they say they're gonna put in, there could still be crime. They don't know if somebody's dumping chemicals there. You know, what's the response gonna be if there is a crime out there? And still, someone could be working on it, you know, during the day or something of the weekend. They don't, let's just say they're not supposed to do, but they still can. We just don't need another, you know, commercial property like this. We need something to benefit the people that is in the community that's still there. And I'm sure that, you know, these guys don't want to live next to a parking lot, and I know that lady doesn't. But you get these people from, you know, I know people have to make money, but these people that live outside of St. Louis or outside the area, they don't know what it feels like to live in that area. Once you pass that intersection, it's a community. It's a rural community, or used to be, but it's not a city life like it is in St. Charles or something. I don't want to be like a Highway Z or a Wentzville Parkway or a Highway K, where there used to be nothing there, and now it's like all businesses and homes. That's what I remember as a kid. He didn't mention the park about Cotterville. That's great. I want to go to it, but that benefits the whole community, not just 300-plus people. That's all it benefits is those. And if you ever get, right now there's people that are passing cars in dangerous parts of D. And just think if they tried to pass a RV. I mean, and then you get people that drive maybe 10, 15 miles below speed limit on D and Double D because they don't know the roads. You get cars of 10, 15 people, they get frustrated, they want to pass. So, you know, I mean, I would like to have a business maybe, but something, or even a no business. I like the trees there with the wildlife, with the, you know, the deer are getting hit. People are moving out there because there's no place for this wildlife to live anymore. I love seeing a deer in my backyard, you know, but it's just not the right business to do. I think if there was, there would need to be something that, as I said, benefits everybody that lives there, because I love where I live. And I haven't moved because I love where I live. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Floyd.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good evening.
My name is Nancy Floyd. I live at 4075 Highway D. I am neighbor to Stephanie Edelman, who just spoke. I sent an email out to you earlier today. I don't know if you've all had the opportunity to read my email, so that tells you most of my concerns and my comments. I very much agree with what Mr. Brazel had said. My husband and I owned and operated a plumbing business for 40-plus years. I understand exactly what he's saying, and I agree, every bit of what you say. A sewage treatment facility for someone to put in there would be very cost prohibitive for that amount of lot and space for any other kind of commercial property. I oppose this very much, merely because I don't think we need it. We have one, and we have an inside storage facility directly across the road from that outside storage facility. It's frustrating to me. I live on Highway D. If you're not familiar with the traffic out there, you have no clue what goes on. I cannot believe, and it is getting progressively worse. And I don't think adding more traffic like that is an answer to our problem. And we do not have a big police presence out there anymore. And, of course, that's a whole other different thing. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know I agree with everything that everyone has said in opposition to this, and I too am opposed to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's the final speaker. Okay, thank you.
Is there any discussion by council?
I'm sorry, Nancy, what did you say?
Did you wish to make any comments or
I-
discussions?
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments. I spoke with Mr. Kolb, and I told him I'm adamantly opposed to this. I wasn't such a fan, I wasn't a fan of Keevan's either, but this one is much more at a crucial point. This is right at the intersection. The other one's down the road a little ways. And this is like the prime entryway into New Melly and the prime entryway into Defiance. And we have so many different ordinances and rules about the prestigious wine country. And then to allow this with all these trailers and whatever you're going to park out there, trucks, it's like an industrial site. I mean, I just think it's horrible planning. And the fact that somebody wants to do an investment because they have no other use for the land isn't really the reason to zone or allow a CUP. It's called a CUP, a conditional use permit. It's a conditional use permit for a reason, so everyone has to have the opportunity to have public comment on it and talk about it. And that's what we're doing. We're having a CUP, and there's very few people that live in this area, I don't know of any, that support this, that think this is a good idea. And so this is the process we're going through. When you talk about septic tanks and sewers, every business out there is on a septic tank, every one. The wineries, the brewery, the restaurant down in the Roadhouse, Don's Place, the gas station, everything's on septic tanks out there. And they do make commercial septic tanks for larger facilities. This is 6 acres. If you were to put a building on there, it'd probably fill up 1/4 of it with some green space and maybe some parking or whatever, but you're taking the whole 6 acres. Every tree, everything, and I don't buy the whole foliage thing in the back, because you're cutting into that with the detention center, you're gonna have grade issues and everything else, and it's elevation at the front higher. And these folks who bought these lots behind it, that wasn't part of the plan, it's coming in after the fact. If this was here first maybe, and then they built a subdivision, then you got a different argument. And all the other folks around there, Lakeway, and all these folks that lived out here for a long time, and then Mr. Lauderdale put all that money in those were two rundown buildings right there on the corner. You see them on this plot plan. They were just not good-looking buildings, and he took and spent a lot of money on these things, fixed them up. You think he wants this storage lot right behind there? So this is not a good plan for Southwest St. Charles County. It's really not. And I'm sure Mr. Kolb can figure out a way to come up with another better use. But there are a lot of uses on here that would work, and they all would probably take septic tanks. Maybe not a car wash, but everything else. I mean, they were making beer at the brewery down in Defiance with a septic tank with a lot of water going through that. So, I mean, and all the wineries use water to make wine, and they're all on septic tanks. So I don't buy that argument. The fact is, this thing is not a good fit for the area, and it just would look horrible. And you say that there are subdivisions that don't want RVs in the line of sight. What about all the people driving through here every day? That's in the line of sight. And why would we have to put up with another one of these things? And this one seems to be a lot bigger than the other one. So, in my view, this is just a horrible plan. So, that's my opinion.
Any other discussion from council members? Okay. Anything further from the applicant, Mr. Faulkner, Mr. Kolb? Do you wish to come back up and make any further comments?
Yes, so one of the concerns was the light pollution. I know that it's in our plan, it's listed on the site that it is a non-invasive downward-facing light. It's to the St. Charles County standard. It's what any commercially zoned place would use, and I think we're actually trying to get it to the point where it's like the further back portion of the site as well as in the middle. So, based on the photometrics of it, it would have zero impact to any neighbors with or without even the barriers, but we obviously have those barriers. In regards to the crime, I've obviously have quite a few connections throughout the area of people that we know, including quite a few recent retirees that are retiring from property management and farming out in that area. Dick Orff and his wife, they've volunteered to help me police the site, as well as stop by there every single day as they drive into town just to check on it and make sure that the police, to add some additional police, make sure it's all picked up and whatnot, as well as, including myself and my two brothers who'd be involved in the process, and not to mention all the residents within the establishment who would do their own very own self-policing, because I'm fairly certain that if they see something going on within there, they're going to want some direct impact pretty immediately, because they don't want their vehicles or property damaged or anything of that nature as well. And then in regards to, it is in the master plan for 2030, so that area has always been C2.
Anything else from the applicants?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think competition is a good thing? Do you think another lot might help people that want to put their vehicle there? The price might be a little competitive?
Competition's always a great thing. Yeah, it keeps people always striving to do better and, provide the best services to their clients.
Did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
That
you.
will conclude then the public hearing on the conditional use permit. At the next meeting, we will vote on it. We will not be allowing any additional comment, but it will be up for a vote. So that would be November the 28th. Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is public comments. So are there any persons who filled out a public comment card for any
Tim
other issue?
Kenke.
Okay.
Hey, Mary.
Thank you. Okay. So this is public comments, you don't need to be sworn in, but there is the 3 minutes on the timer, and so you can keep your eyes on that, and when we're finished, we'll ask you to sit down, so.
Sure, okay.
All right, just, you will state your name if you will.
Sure, Tim Kenke, 920 East Highway Inn in Wentzville. This relates to Bill 5085 that Mr. Brazel had, I guess, sponsored this bill. And what it is, it relates to allowing for performance guarantees, within performance guarantees, to have a surety bond as an option. Right now, I just recently went through a development, and going through it, developing right now, and as I was kind of going through it, I noticed that I had to get a MoDOT surety bond, and they allowed for the bond. And recently, a couple years ago, I went through City of Wentzville, and they also allowed a surety bond. Right now, with St. Charles County, the options are security deposit, letter of credit, and a cashier's check. So basically, it's cash out of hand. As a result of my project, I've come out of pocket about $100,000 because of the need for performance guarantees for erosion control and so forth, based upon the calculations. What I would like to see, because of municipalities that allow for surety bonds, is to have that as an option. The main reason, of course, is you don't have to come out of pocket so much in order to allow for that performance guarantee. In this situation I'm in right now, I'll be out of pocket for probably a year or so, as my development will last that long and I get the grass growing and get all of the things done that they would require. So I guess what I'm asking for is if we could allow for surety bond to be an acceptable performance guarantee. I think what I've heard in the past and kind of asking the question is that this came up a while ago, but it was not allowed because those in charge said that it might be too hard to collect from a developer like myself should they not complete the project. But I think that if other municipalities are doing that, maybe that St. Charles County could look at that as well as an option. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Brad Goss.
Good evening, Mr. Goss.
Good evening. My name is Brad Goss, 120 South Central, Suite 700, Clayton, Missouri, 63105. I wanted to just briefly address the council on Bill 5101B, which is a substitute bill. I have a client, Mrs. McConey, who owns property in District 2, that we filed an application back in July for a campground. Campground in the A zone is a conditional use. And it simply says conditional use permit campground. The staff had asked us at the time, would we hold that application so that we can get some more detail on what's allowed in a campground, what's not allowed in a campground. My client has 85 acres. She's got a lake. She's got trails. She's got residents there. She wanted to put 5 cabins there. And we said, fine, we'll wait and get some definition. We've worked with the staff on this bill and would request that the council give it favorable consideration. Thank you. I'm happy to answer your questions if you have.
Okay. No? All right, thank you.
Grayson Jostes.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Grayson Joseph. I live in Harvester Road. In the last meeting, I said that one of the candidates was threatened by a person on an ATV, and the person was holding a bow and arrow to the candidate and says, I want you to get all you Democrats out of my town. I meant to say he was brandishing, like on his back, with his bow and arrow on his back, and said, I want all of you Democrats out of my town. Plus, he drove away without the candidate asking him why, which makes him a coward. So it doesn't matter if he was holding or brandishing with any weapon and then threatening to any candidate to get out of his town. That makes you a coward and a terrible human being, which is the MAGA Republicans are now famous for. Now, a person who claimed to be a patriot commented on the candidate's Facebook page and said the reason that he was on an ATV was because it was bow or hunting season. Now, I've seen the candidate signs from Maclay to Mid-Rivers Mall Drive. Now, which of those roads can you see a person on an ATV with a bow and arrow on his back? Nowhere, unless you're in the country roads kind of close to any forest or open land. So again, I apologize for my misinformation, because that's what Democrats do. They realize what they said and tell what really happened, because I know that the other half of the other party has never done anything because they think they're right and choose violence over humanity. Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you,
That's the
sir.
final speaker.
Sorry?
That's the final
Oh, thank
speaker.
you. Okay, very good. All right, so next on the agenda is oral report. Do we have any report from the executive branch?
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Okay. I hope that Mr. Ellman recuperates from his recent surgery, and we'll see him soon. So I hope he's doing well. Okay, so then next item would be the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Is there a-
Motion to approve.
Second. Would you please strike that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda has passed. We have one bill for final passage, and that is bill number 5109. Would you please read the bill?
Bill number 5109, an ordinance authorizing execution of an agreement relating to St. Charles County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant Program, or Urban County CDBG Program, namely a 2022 subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters to operate and run the city's CDBG programs and services.
Is there any discussion? Please read the title and call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing execution of an agreement relating to St. Charles County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant Program, or Urban County CDBG Program, namely a 2022 subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters to operate and run the city's CDBG programs and services. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And the bill passes. Bills for introduction. First is Bill number 5110.
Bill number 5110, requested by Sarah Evers, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance amending Chapter 205 Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, Animal Regulations.
Is there any discussion on the bill? Mr. Cronin?
I just have a point that I'd like to clarify for next meeting. There's a lot of the rules in here that say that, for instance, hens may be kept on residential property, and there's a bunch of requirements for that. Is that to assume that hens that are kept on agricultural property do not have to deal with those conditions? There's several things in the ordinance like that. I actually went through the 80 pages, and there's some stuff in there that I think you're going to have a hard time enforcing in agricultural areas of the county. Okay, so that would be my comment between now and next meeting. Maybe we take another look at that.
Would you like me to call you and get a list of those?
Yeah, when your voice is better, dear. Okay.
Any other discussion?
Well, I think one of the reasons this is up before us is there's been some occasions where dangerous animals, like vicious dogs, have attacked people, and the people were very upset because the county ended up giving these vicious dogs back to those people again. And I don't think the county's not handling it well because of the regulations that we had before.
Oh, and I had a very wicked dog bite case in my district recently, so I'm aware of that, and I'm perfectly fine with that. What I'm talking about, for instance, it says chickens may not be slaughtered on a property in any circumstances. I get that for residential subdivision. That ain't gonna fly in St. Paul when the guy's got 100 acres and he's got a bunch of chickens, so.
It's Sunday
that's-
dinner.
Yeah, that's what the thing, the clarification. The rest of the stuff, I mean, the stuff with dangerous dogs and having a hearing officer and all that, that's needed stuff that we have to do.
If there's no further discussion, then we'll move on to Bill number 5112.
Bill number 5112, requested by Robert Myers, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District to RR Single Family Residential District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District per application RZ 22-15.
Discussion? Okay, hearing none. Next bill for introduction is Bill number 5113.
Bill number 5113, requested by Robert Myers, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a grant agreement with the Missouri Department of Economic Development for Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds in the amount of $15,780,460 and further authorizing the acceptance of CDBG DR funds.
Any discussion on this bill? Okay. Moving on to Bill number 5114.
Bill number 5114, requested by Robert Myers, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the professional administrative services and program administration agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Charles for the city's operation of the Urban County's 2022-2025 Community Development Block Grant Programs and Services.
Any discussion? Moving on then to 5115.
Bill number 5115, requested by Dr. Mary Kay, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a program services contract tracking number 52432 with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services for violent death and overdose death surveillance reimbursement.
Any questions? Moving on, Bill number 5116.
Bill number 5116, requested by Michelle McBride, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing execution of a tax collection agreement between St. Charles County and the St. Charles County Convention and Sports Facilities Authority.
Any questions or comments, discussion? Okay, hearing none, Bill number 5117.
Bill number 5117, requested by Sheriff Scott Lewis, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance accepting a grant award in the amount of $3,191 from the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program to the Sheriff Department for the sole purpose of purchasing bullet-resistance body armor for law enforcement officers.
Is there any discussion? Bill number 5118.
Bill number 5118, requested by Tracy Bain, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance accepting a grant from the United States Department of the Treasury Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund in the amount of $100,000 for any governmental purpose other than a lobbying activity.
Is there any discussion? Moving on, bill number 5119.
Bill number 5119, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a professional service agreement between St. Charles County, Missouri and the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Missouri in conjunction with the Missouri Highway Patrol as fiscal agent and Nino Prajul as an independent contractor.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, moving to bill 5120.
Bill number 5120, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a professional service agreement between St. Charles County, Missouri and the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Missouri in conjunction with the Missouri Highway Patrol as fiscal agent and Samantha Reitz as an independent contractor.
Any discussion on this bill? The last bill for introduction tonight is bill number 5121.
Bill number 5121, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a professional service agreement between St. Charles County, Missouri and the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Missouri in conjunction with the Missouri Highway Patrol as fiscal agent and Mohsen Pasha as an independent contractor.
Is there any discussion? All of these bills then introduced will be voted on at the next council meeting, which is November 28th. Is there any action to be taken on any of the tabled bills?
Yes. I guess we ought to do this one at a time, but I'd
Yeah.
like to go ahead and bring Bill 5085 off the table to talk about tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in
Do you-
fa-
Nancy, point of order, do
Yeah.
you request that Bill 5085, or do you go down to the table bill proposed amendment substitute bill?
I'm just going in the order that they're on the agenda. Do you object to
Oh,
that?
no, what, I think that, well, go ahead, David.
No, I think, I agree.
Because one of them replaces the other. so,
Yeah, but I thought we were
So
just
let's
talking
go-
about 5085.
Well, I think I got the wrong bill.
Okay, go ahead, start over.
Let's go with
then.
substitute Bill 5101, which is both the bills combined that I want to bring off the table.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so that's you're making the motion to remove that one from the table.
Instead of
Okay.
5085.
Okay, great. Then is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we will then discuss substitute bill number 5101. Would you read the title, please?
Substitute Bill Number 5101, an ordinance amending Sections 405.060 regarding definitions of campgrounds, 405.080.c.11 regarding conditional uses in an A agricultural districts, 405.500.d regarding sewage disposal for campgrounds, and 405.525.d.12 of the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri regarding surety bond as an acceptable form of performance guarantees.
Okay, so is there discussion on this bill? I noticed there's a proposed amended substitute bill.
That's what I thought David pulled out, proposed
Oh,
amendment.
I'm sorry, I thought it was just 5101. It's 5101A.
You need to make a motion to amend substitute Bill 5101 and replace it with amended substitute 5101A.
Okay,
And
yes.
then you'll do it again with 5101B.
Okay,
So I'd like to make that motion to amend this bill for substitute Bill 5101A.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that?
Yes.
All those in
Okay.
favor?
Yeah, but I just want to make sure oh, yeah, we have to vote on that first, sorry.
No,
All
first
right.
discussion. You're
Oh,
right,
sorry.
first discussion.
Discussion.
Yes.
I feel like I'm in the corn maze and I can't find my way out.
You're almost there.
Okay, is there discussion then about the amended bill?
Well, I'm glad there was somebody came up and spoke tonight on this, security bonds. I really think we need to move in that direction. A lot of cities do. And who this hurts is the small guy. The small guy that's trying to get in business, or the retired guy that, you know, used to operate equipment, that's got a bulldozer and a dump truck, and somebody wants him to come over and grade off an acre for his house or something. They can't do that currently unless they go buy an expensive performance bond. Where this allows, a security bond is a lot more affordable, and he can go do that job. Just like the gentleman that's a small contractor, to go out and, you know, buy a big performance bond, it's gonna cost you thousands of dollars that a lot of these smaller guys can't afford. So I am supportive of this, and I don't think it's gonna have any effect on how things are going now. And there's only one project that was ever brought up that somebody had a security bond and it took them 6 months to get it, to finally get the money for it. But on an average, I don't think it's going to take very long at all. So I'm in support of this bill.
Nancy?
Yes.
What this does is, currently, right now, if you do a project, you gotta put up a
Right.
cash bond, your own money, cash. Or you put a letter of credit, which is the same thing, because it takes leverage away from your business. So when you do a project like this gentleman down here, if it's a, let's say it's $1.5 million project, they may request him to put up a $100,000 cash bond, a cash check, you know, certified check, which comes out of his leverage. But if you use a bond, you can, like an insurance bond, you buy a bond, and it'd be like, maybe for a bond on 100,000, maybe $5,000, something like that. So you can buy the bond, and if he fails, then the bond goes to the, pays for it in the county. That's how all construction jobs are done with performance bonds. They're all done that way. Now, what we did is we met with the community development to figure out what would be an equitable way to work it out, where developers and small business guys, even some of the HBA members, are absolutely in favor of this as well. And so what we agreed is immediate action needs to be taken for erosion and sedimentation, where there may be a failure or breach with the way that they're doing the sedimentation and control, which would affect neighbors and would affect the water quality and things like that. So they agreed that it would make sense to have a cash bond only on the erosion control, so they can take immediate action and make it corrected, and then they would get reimbursed for it. They would be the county or whatever government entity that is. But on the other stuff, these are private, these are not public jobs, these are only private jobs that are a private business of some sort. So you gotta also ask your question is, how much government interference do you need on a private development to a degree on this sort of thing? Because you're going to have to live up to all the building codes and all the building requirements that you already paid building permits for, so you have to do all that stuff anyway. So I would just say that this would be needed. What we did is we agreed, I feel we came up with a compromise with community development, because when they were when they were going after a developer, and most or all instances, which is very few times, it was on sedimentation and erosion control and nothing else. So this would be helpful to the smaller businessman, and it would also be helpful to home developers, HBA members who don't want to take all their cash equity and use it as leverage.
Any other comments? Mr. Cronin?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I still think this is a solution looking for a problem. My district has as much development as about anybody's, and I'm not, 12 years in the council, I've not had a single developer have this problem. And the established developers don't have a problem. I've done development of my own. Bank letter of credit is something that's accepted. If you have a good relationship with your banker, that costs you nothing. Even if you don't have a good relationship, it's going to cost you a couple $100. I talked to Mike Herbert quite a bit about this before his recent illness, and he said he knew of some nightmares regarding this. John Greifsue sent out a packet of stuff today with a lot of problems in the county, and one of the problems in the county was a subdivision called Jackson Estates, which was a train wreck when I came on the council because that developer bailed. We're going into another period of slow residential growth. These subdivisions, when they fail, they're a big problem. I think the bill, the procedures we have right now are working. They're not causing a problem. I know Jackson Estate was a huge headache for the neighbors in that area, and it took a long time before things got resolved with it. I know the county councilor has told us it puts us if we pass this bill, it puts us on a weaker position if we have a subdivision to fail. And I think Mr. Greifsue, I appreciate what he sent today. I hope everybody else reads it because there are a lot of cases where these bonds are not doing the job like our current system does.
Joe, I hate to tell you this, but some of the people that asked me to move this forward are from your district. And I'll be glad to tell you who they are after the meeting, but I think it's important for all parts of the county.
Mr. Gall, did you want to say anything, or you?
This is discussion with the council.
Well, I know, but
isn't it?
okay, yeah.
Okay.
So I think Mr. Cronin how many folks on this board had to go through commercial construction or any kind of construction with county P&Z and go through the process? How many on this board?
I have.
Okay, so commercial? Yeah,
commercial,
so
no
when you have a project you're doing, it's in 10,000 acres of farm field, and they're plotted fields up every day, and then you got to set up sediment and erosion around this farm field, it's an existing farm field around to protect the other 5,000 acres of mud and farm field, and you got to put up a cash bond for the whole project. It doesn't make sense. Even putting up a cash bond for the sediment and erosion, because where the mud's gonna go is into the mud, but you could agree to that, but not the whole thing. There's so many rules that
Get a
make no
letter of
sense.
credit. Okay?
Joe, in the banking world, a letter of credit is still a leverage of cash against your leverage in your assets.
If
So
you plan on
if you
doing
get a
the
letter of credit
project
of
anyway, you've got the
$100,000,
credit.
it's still leveraging out
One
your
at a
cash
time,
assets.
please. Yeah, one at a time.
Yeah, I mean, a letter of credit still leverages out your cash assets, that's all
Okay.
there's to
All
it.
right, thank you. Did you want to make a comment, Mr.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to
Pollard?
Mr. Myers.
Thank you. I was-
Or Community Development, someone, Councilman Brazel mentioned that he spoke with you folks and kind of came up with somewhat of a compromise. Could you kind of expound on that?
Yeah, sure. So right now, we accept certified for cashier's check, letter of credit, escrow agreement, lender's agreement. Those are the forms that we accept now. And there was a proposal to allow bonds, but the first proposal was to allow bonds for any sort of thing that these performance agreements would pertain to, including for erosion control. And for us, that would be a big hindrance because, as you mentioned, sometimes we need to move very quickly. You know, if the hill slides off into the retention basin for the subdivision next door, we've got to be able to pull that money quickly if necessary, if they don't take care of it right away. Whereas a surety bond, it takes more time. A lot of times there's attorneys involved, and it's a little less predictable with the surety bonds. So the way that this bill is written, it would limit it to when you go to get a site plan and you have to post a performance guarantee, it would add bonds to the to the type of performance guarantee you could get, and you could use it for stormwater infrastructure when you're doing a site plan. So that's what's before you now.
So I might understand that your department is in favor of this bill, or okay with this bill as it sits?
This is more acceptable than the original. What was originally proposed was that the security bonds could be used for anything, any sort of performance guarantee, and we just could not, we thought that would hurt the county. So this is more acceptable to us.
More acceptable.
More acceptable.
I guess part of the thing that I have, Dave, the example that you brought up of the local guy who's wanting to do that small project, if we had dollar amounts in this, like you could use a bond up to a certain dollar amount. That would cover that guy who you're talking about is wanting to do it. If you're talking about a major development right? So the Jackson Estates example that you gave, if you're talking about something like that, this could be an overreach at that point. But so I'm wondering if there's a happy medium between the two. You can use an surety bond up to insert dollar amount here to cover what you're wanting to cover. And that way, that guy's taken care of, and they can go do that. But the county may not be on the hook for a multi-million-dollar development, right? That's, you could have a $100 million new home development that's going in. I'd like to have a little more assurance on that, but I don't have a problem taking care of the small contractor who's trying to do the job that you gave as an example. I'd like to find a way to help them out and make that possible. Is there a way that we could do a happy medium on this?
I think so. I mean, I'd be glad to amend it to not to exceed jobs, just not to exceed jobs over 100,000.
That's not a bad, you're on the right direction, Mike. I agree with what you're saying. I think I don't know if is it the bond? I think we should table it, Dave, and figure out what the most reasonable solution is, because is it 100,000 on the bond, or is it 100 million on the project? Because there's a big difference, A $100,000 project don't go very far in anything in today's world.
I don't understand, because the state of Missouri allows surety bonds for major highway projects, and we're complaining about these small projects.
I agree, totally.
I don't know that why we have to be so restrictive. The cities around us have allowed surety bonds. And I think just because one development failed, and it really wasn't that much money, it was some
more
erosion
time to
control to
getting it.
put in, some silt fence and things. Silt fence is pretty cheap to put in, but they also include the labor and everything involved. I mean, I built a house right next to a creek, put silt fence all the way around my house. It didn't cost me less than $100. So
I don't know how the issue was done. Robert, you may know a little bit more about this, but there was that whole new apartment complex area there along Highway 94 at Mid Rivers. So they were putting that whole apartment complex area there. They did not silted protection very well. And all the people at the end of that across the creek from Home Depot, which used to be District 3, those folks lost tons of damage there. And that was St. Peter's that was in charge of that whole area where the apartments were going. But it was unincorporated where these folks were, right? That mud all came down, filled the entire basement of their homes, filled garages, filled everything. Those people were waiting for months to try and get that worked out. I don't know if that was a surety bond issue or what was going on with that, but I know I talked to those folks for about 8 months they were fighting constantly to try and get this thing worked out, because there was a lot of finger pointing and a lot of trying to get their money, and they couldn't get it. So I don't want to put people in that position where they're struggling like that, because I got to tell you, when you've got 12 feet of mud that just showed up in the bottom of your house, you're freaking out right now, and you don't have the money to go get that out of your house. So I'm just looking to try and figure out how can we maybe find a happy medium here. I'm not trying to compete with the state of Missouri and building the highways. I get that. But that's also probably in a place where you're not going to have a ton of residential areas, because if you're putting that highway in, you got a lot of leeway.
I don't know that we need to table it. We got till next meeting. We can't pass it tonight
Well,
anyway.
just a question real quick. For one, Mr. Greifshu's email for today, I think everybody look at, there's actually 7 different problem areas in the county that have happened in recent years. Additionally, I think we ought to give our Director of Community Development opportunity to completely get over his illness and comment on this. So I would prefer either pushing it off, table, and however you want to do it.
Yeah, my point was I think we should table it because, it seems like we've made progress, but as an example, Mr. Brazel, we need to come up with a figure, whatever that might be. And I don't know enough about the subject to give you any idea. And, technically, we could vote on this tonight, but I think we should table it and, and see if we can work a little bit more on it.
So is there a motion?
Actually,
A motion to table.
Second.
but you have yours, and just for clarification, Councilman Hammond made a motion, and it got a second, but it didn't go anywhere. So I would think just to rescind your motion is all he would need, and then it would stay tabled. He's shaking yes. I'm going with yes.
David,
So-
you rescind your motion?
Yes.
Would somebody please diagram this whole thing?
I'm
for
really
me?
starting to lose my temper on this, because I think it's such a minor thing, and it's become such a big ordeal that I just soon vote on it. If you don't want it, get rid of it, and we're done with it.
So wait, are you rescinding your motion?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
rescinding.
Okay, and then I think Mr. Hollander
just
made a
frustrated.
motion.
Well, yeah, if he rescinds his motion, then my
We're
motion's
okay.
meaningless. so-
Okay, okay.
It's back where it was.
So it's back on the table. Okay, all right. So is there a motion to remove any other bills from the table?
I motion to move proposed amended substitute bill 5101-B.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
What point of order? Donna, do I have to poll, or do we have to pull another one off first, or do we have this as a substitute bill?
We had, okay, you took off the table substitute bill 5101.
Yeah.
And then you just
Okay.
dealt with 5101A, and now you're dealing with 5101B. So you'll
Yeah.
need to make a motion to substitute bill 5101 with substitute bill 5101, amended substitute bill 5101B.
Oh, dear Lord.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to amend from substitute bill number 5101 to put in proposed amendment substitute bill number 5101-B.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so then with respect to amended substitute bill number 5101B, is there discussion?
Well, just a rundown, we broke out the substitute bill. The performance bond was put into this, which was never requested. It was just happened that way, I guess. We got, me and John or whoever lost communication on it, but, so we got the cabin thing. As a person in my area has 85 acres, and she and her husband bought a farm, and they want to have 5 cabins, like cabins, cottages. And so they were working with the lady, and they couldn't come up, they would have to change the whole zoning to a campground, or change it to, it wasn't working the way staff liked it, so they decided to revamp the whole thing. So everything else in there, the sewage, all that other stuff, is something that the staff did to make it all flow. That was just part of this bill to work. It really has nothing to do with anything else. It was just cleaning it all up. And that's, so the wineries are in favor of this. One of them sent a letter, but we don't read them publicly anymore, but they would like to be able to have cabins. You can only have 1 cabin per 5 acres. Or you go to plan and zoning, you actually get a campground zoning, which is different too, which is another category. And so it's just got all this different language in here. So folks who have wineries, instead of having to go to an AT district, they can just go to a CUP and have cabins. And that's basically what it is.
Any discussion on this?
No,
I wonder if staff could maybe clarify, because I'm a little confused about what this bill would do. Robert, can you maybe shed a little more light on this and what the staff's position is?
Over the years, we have had people approach us that want to do what I would call a camping cabin within campgrounds. And our campground ordinance is basically camping, which is traditionally, tents or RVs. We have stretched that definition within our UDO to include what I would call the primitive camping cabins like we have at Klondike Park. They don't have any running water, no heating or cooling, no bathrooms, no kitchen facilities, anything.
Just a shelter.
It's a shelter, yeah, exactly. So we've made an interpretation to allow that, but people are some people are looking for more. They're looking for just more than the basics. In this case, we have a specific proposal where they want to have these tiny cabins, I'll call them, but they want to have some amenities. They want to have heating and cooling. They want to have a toilet and a sink. And
Would that be, how would they do a toilet and a sink? It would be like a composting toilet, or what would that be?
Septic tanks.
Septic tank?
well, that's why we had to address that in the ordinance as well, because there's a section of the ordinance that says that if you're a campground, you either have to be on a public sewer or an MBR plant, or you have to have self-contained units that you would haul away the waste. Well, that doesn't leave any room for if you wanted to do a septic tank, I'll call it. Just recently, we had someone wanted to do 5/10. They had a campground CUP, they proposed 5/10, that was turned down. We didn't catch it, but in their concept plan, they wanted to have these, by each glamping tent, they wanted to have an outhouse that was connected altogether with an on-site sewage treatment system. And technically, that's not allowed because it's a campground. Our ordinance says it's got to be either on a public sewer or an MBR plant or a self-contained unit that you haul away. So that was part of the cleanup that staff took upon ourselves to add. Here's our concern, and we've addressed it in this ordinance. Two things. One is that what's the line between these cabins and a motel? Would this in effect allow motels to be located in agricultural areas, or potentially would these turn into housing? So we've tried to address that two ways. One is that we're requiring a conditional use permit in terms of the use. Two, the way that these are defined, they can never be dwellings. They can't have they can't have bathroom and kitchen and sleeping areas. They could have two of the three, but not all three. So that way we could help try to prevent them from eventually being used year-round as housing. The reason that's a sensitive topic to us is in part in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, we had all of these campgrounds along the Mississippi River that developed, and they had these summer cottages where people would come and they would spend 2 weeks there during the summer to get away from the heat. That was back before the days of air conditioning. They get away from the city heat. They would use them for just a few weeks a year. Eventually, those became year-round housing. And it's taken us decades and decades to finally convert those and to make sure that they're not substandard housing being used along the Mississippi River. And that's one of the reasons that we've tried to be so careful in crafting this ordinance at the request of Dave Hammond and Joe Brazel. We're trying to ensure that they would not eventually become used year-round as housing. So what's before you tonight is that you could have a campground that would have, you could have tents and/or RVs and/or some camping cabins. If you have camping cabins, it's limited on the size. It's tiny, frankly. And also, you can have no more than one, in agriculture areas, no more than one camping cabin per 5 acres. And that's so you wouldn't end up with, someone once proposed to have 200 camping cabins on, 6 acres down in Augusta or something.
Mr. Cronin?
Just to be clear about this, is this ordinance something that you feel that you need to move forward and clarify things, or this is a request of one attorney for one client? That's what I'd like to know, because I don't really like the idea of changing our existing rules just to satisfy one person who with an attorney. So if this is something you've worked on and you feel this is a good collaboration and you think it's preferable to what we have right now, then probably I'm fine with it. But if it's just something that we're doing to appease one attorney for one client, I have another response for that one. The other thing, I hit you right on the note. I've lived along the Mississippi my entire life, and a lot of those old campgrounds right now are a problem. Cherokee Campground on Highway 79, point of fact. It's supposed to be a campground. They've got underpinning on campers down there. It's more like a transient encampment. So, and so if you feel like the county's in a better position as a result of this ordinance, that's fine, but I would like to know your opinion and Mike Herbert's opinion on this too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say honestly, it's some of both. There was a specific proposal that did initiate this, that came forward, and it just did not fit in our ordinance. But we've had these proposals in the past. There was one, I want to say in 2017, where someone wanted to do these tree houses, and they were calling it a campground, and they were units that had, big screen TV, hot tub and jacuzzi, et cetera, but it was part of a quote, a campground. So that to me shows you that campgrounds, the idea of them have evolved over the years. You see what they call the glamping, where you're out there in the tent, but it's a high-end sort of experience. We're seeing more of that. You see the KOA campgrounds where they have a whole bunch of RVs, but on the side they have these little cabins as well. Those are some commercial industrial. Some of those are in commercial industrial areas. But I would say it's a little of both, honestly.
Okay. And the original bill, I saw that it struck out the requirements for campground sewage disposal. I don't see that in this amended bill. Is that, so are the sewage requirements for campgrounds still the same as they currently are? Okay.
I haven't seen that in the current bill, so I'm not sure.
The original bill on page 84 of it struck out the requirements for campground sewage disposal. I had an issue with that because I think campgrounds ought to have sewage disposal.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't see that provision being struck out on the proposed amended substitute. So I guess was that a change that was made somewhere, Rory?
There's a possibility. There's a possibility, council member, that in the splitting of these bills, that might have not been transposed correctly.
Whoops.
So can you tell me what exactly you're looking at?
On the
What section?
original bill on page 84, it struck out the requirements from campground sewage disposal, okay? I'm just scanned this one, I didn't read the whole 80 pages of it, but I did not see that in the amended substitute.
All right, so let me,
Councilman, as I understood it, they were just taking everything about campgrounds out of that bill. So you should have seen everything struck through that had to do with campgrounds. It's just because they were splitting the bill, to split the question. So it wasn't that was originally coming out of the bill. Does that make sense?
Well, the actual portion of it, okay, I don't have it, I can't.
oh, you know
pull it
what?
up.
It's
Huh?
actually it was taken out in the surety bond bill. If you look at the surety bond bill.
When they were combined
on
on
page
page
83.
84 is where they took it out. That's what I saw.
Yeah. So it looks like if you look at the surety bond bill, it's still in there, and it's on page 83, and it's removing that section.
So I guess the question is, are we pulling out requirements for sewage disposal from campgrounds or not, okay?
Well,
Are we changing them in any manner?
the way I would look at it, Rory, is if both bills are approved, it would be removed as part of the performance guarantee bill.
Okay, so I think
So that one's still
there's a
taken.
clerical error there, okay?
Well, here's what would happen in my thinking. If that were removed and put in as reserve for campgrounds, campgrounds would default to, they'd have to provide sanitary disposal like you can in any other situation. You either have to be on a public sewer, an MBR plant, an on-site sewage treatment system, or a self-contained unit to haul away. It would still be, it would default to the building codes and the sewage disposal codes of the county. That's the way I see it.
But we're striking it out of our current code in that particular section, right?
Right, and I think that's because the way the ordinance reads now, you can't use on-site sewage treatment systems for campgrounds. It's just not allowed. And so by striking it, it would allow those 4 or 5 different techniques or ways, including on-site sewage treatment systems. At least that's the intent.
Question.
Yes.
This bill, how close does this bill come to allowing what we have at Klondike Park? Because I see no problems at all with what we have at Klondike Park.
Okay.
That works well.
Well, so the Klondike Park, those cabins are, I looked up the building permits. They're about 210 square feet on the first floor, 100 square feet in a loft. They're about the same size as what's being proposed for the campground that we have an application for on Becker-Jorling Road. Just, what they're proposing about is 200 square feet. Those ones of the county are 210 square feet. The difference is the ones of the county, they don't have any sort of amenities. They're very primitive. The ones of the county, those got building permits back in 2002, 2004, whenever that was, and they are architect designed. So one thing I didn't mention here was we've tried really, really hard to work within the building code, because the building code gets tricky when you have sleeping quarters for people that's not their single-family residence. The building code wants to put sprinklers and everywhere that people sleep, that it's not their single-family home. So we've thought about that as well and tried to work with that in the ordinance too.
Well, it comes down to if you want to be able to have cabins and not more than one per 5 acres out in that part of the county. I mean, I would much rather go stay in a cabin, no offense, Joe, than in an RV park. But I think it's a good concept, and it doesn't really matter. I don't know these people that got this proposed, and I don't know them nothing, but I definitely think it's a good idea for that part of the county.
So this bill says one of these, 1 per 5 acres? Is that what this ordinance calls
In
for?
agricultural zoning districts, to be limited to no more than 1 per 5 acres. And that would ensure it would be kind of diffuse and low impact. But they also can be allowed within other zoning districts, including Parks and Recreation District, Commercial Zoning District, and Industrial Zoning District, because we do have a few campgrounds in other zoning districts sometimes.
I agree. I think if it works well for Klondike, it should work well for individuals that want to have it.
Madam Chair.
Roy has something to add.
Just to respond again to Councilmember Cronin, the language that's in this current version, this substitute amendment 5101B, does not show the stricken language. It presupposes that is what this will look like if the council passes it. So the language is removed and replaced with that word reserved. So if you compare it to the original bill, like you said on page 84, at the top, it is now on page 83, and D now just says reserved, and that language
That's not very many, yeah.
related to the campground sewage disposal has been deleted.
Okay, well, so just to be clear, I'm reading it, all campground and travel trailer parks shall have one or following methods of sewage disposal. And it lays it all out, but it's all
Done.
struck.
Correct.
Does that mean we do no longer have requirements for sewage disposal?
If you were to pass it in its current form, that would strike that language.
Yeah, I don't think I'm good with that, okay? Do we really want campgrounds without sewage facilities? Okay.
Mr. Graves.
Can you have Robert clarify that? Because the striking of that language was requested by staff because the current language is more restrictive than what is practical, because the sewage disposals in other parts of the code. Robert, I'll explain that better.
Yeah, I know. That aspect was not requested by anyone other than staff. We're just trying to provide some more flexibility so someone could use an on-site sewage treatment system, septic system. So if this were struck, in our view, it would fall upon, it wouldn't say that there's no requirements for sewage disposal. It would fall upon our sewage disposal code. And it said you have to follow the sewage disposal code and allow any of those things in there.
So you got it covered under the other part of the code?
Yeah, that's our intent, yeah.
Okay.
Call the question.
Call the
I
question.
got one more thing if you, if you give me.
One more thing?
Yeah, there was one other minor thing that this fixes. I think how we went through it is that currently, if you wanted to own a campground and be the owner, operator, and live on the site, that's not permissible in any of our zoning, right? Because you'd have to be either Park and Rec district or commercial currently to have a campground, and neither of those allow an on-site residence. Is that correct?
Is that a
Yeah, I
problem?
think that's right. And then plus, this gave us an opportunity to, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
So with having it as a conditional use in the agricultural district allows someone to own a house, be a resident operator of a small lodging establishment on their property that we currently do not have anywhere else in our zoning code.
Okay, so, should we,
So currently you have a motion to amend 5101 and
Yeah.
replace with amended substitute bill 5101B. You have
Yeah.
a second. You'll need
Yeah.
an all in favor. Just to approve, would
just to approve that?
the
Okay,
amendment.
gotcha, all right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so then read the title and call the roll.
Amended substitute bill 5101B, an ordinance amending sections 405.060 regarding certain definitions of camping and campgrounds, 405.080.C.11 regarding conditional uses in A agricultural districts, and 405.500.D regarding sewage disposal for campgrounds. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
The bill passes. That was epic.
Amen.
I think that concludes all of the items on our agenda today. I did want to make one announcement. Wanted to call out the fact that we have two St. Charles County individuals grew up here. They made the U.S. men's soccer team. It's competing in the World Cup in Qatar. One is Josh Sargent, who's a forward, and the other is Tim Ream, a defender. There's a website that you can look up on the U.S. men's national team website. They're going to be playing against Wales on November 21st, next Monday, and then against England later on in the month. And hopefully they'll do well, so we want to wish them good luck
Yeah.
and all of our support.
Yeah, I might add, I am not a soccer guy, but this World Cup is a big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
And to have two kids from the same high school,
That's amazing.
out of 26 people in the whole United States of America representing us is pretty incredible.
big deal.
Pretty cool. Really is.
We defer to Coach on that one, so thank you. All right, so let's wish them all well. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, any other comments? Oh, never mind.
I just wanted to wish the councilman happy birthday.
Oh, John,
Yes.
oh, yeah, happy birthday, John. Many more. Okay.
I'd say congratulations to everybody who won their races in November. Congratulations, including the sheriff in the back.
Very well.
There you go.
And,
Okay.
and let's hope for a full recovery for Mr. Elman and Mr. Herbert and get back to shape.
All right, all in favor of the adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.